July 30th is the International Day of Friendship. So today, I'd like to share with you a story about the friendship between the British Navy and the samurai clan from the 19th century. Through this story, you'll learn that anime tropes about rivals becoming friends after a fight, like Dragon Ball, are true. And also the reason why easy-peeling mandarins in the UK are called Satsumas. In 1862, Japan had just been forced to open its ports to international trade, so the first waves of non-Dutch or Chinese merchants and diplomats have begun to arrive. There was a fierce anti-foreigner movement among some samurai clans, and foreigners were getting attacked by rogue samurai across the country. In such a time, the clan master of the Satsuma clan, one of the mightiest samurai clans, was on his litter in a grand samurai procession heading home to his Satsuma domain, which is present-day Kagoshima Prefecture, from Edo, which is present-day Tokyo. They were marching on a narrow rice paddy embankment like this, and from the opposite side, an American merchant called Eugene Miller Van Reed was galloping on horseback towards the procession, and he was on his way to Edo. Now, during this Edo period, nobody was allowed to stand or walk in front of a samurai procession unless you were a courier or a midwife on duty. You were supposed to go off to the side and wait for the procession to pass, like how we wait for the train to pass. And what happened if you didn't get out of the way? You got killed. This American guy, Reed, he knew this rule, so he dismounted his horse and went off the embankment. He took off his hat and saluted the Satsuma samurai, so nothing happened. Several miles later, the procession came across another foreigner. A group of two English merchants and a woman was trotting on horseback toward the Satsuma procession. They were merchants who had started up their businesses in Shanghai and Yokohama. They were taking a vacation and were on their way to see a big shrine. When the Satsuma staff at the very front of the procession saw these English people, they tried to use gestures to tell them to get out of the way. But the English people didn't think they were being told to get off the embankment because that would be a hassle. They probably didn't know anything about classism and couldn't imagine the consequences of disrupting hierarchical order. So out of all the things they could have done, they rode straight into the procession. The Englishman at the front was Charles Lennox Richardson. Even his peers then, and historians now, seem to understand him as an arrogant adventurer, so he was a jerk, right? His two companions were more sensible people, so they pleaded with him not to provoke the samurai. But Richardson was like, I know how to handle these people. So without even dismounting, they kept going through the procession, everyone around them looking horrified, just thinking what would happen next. Now, the size of these samurai processions depended on the size of the samurai clan. The Satsuma clan was one of the biggest, so they had thousands of men in this parade, but most of them were just part-timers, not samurai. So they probably didn't look very intimidating. But of course, near the clan master's litter, there were ripped samurai bodyguards, and many of them were anti-foreigner. If their boss, the Satsuma clan master, had not been a person who took a conscious stance on the anti-foreigner sentiment, they would have drawn their swords immediately and killed these English people without thinking twice. Now, after a few minutes riding into the procession, arrogant Richardson finally started noticing. Oh, I am surrounded by dangerous-looking men, and they don't seem happy in the slightest. But then again, he wasn't thinking because thinking was apparently not something he did. As he tried to turn, his horse faced the clan master's litter. Everyone drew their katana, and one of them slashed Richardson from behind, and everyone followed. The other Englishman got badly injured, but he was able to run back to Yokohama. The English woman got a part of her hair cut off, but she was able to run off without getting hurt. Richardson's horse carried him away for a while, but he fell from his horse eventually. A Satsuma samurai came and finished him. The local villagers built a grave for him. This incident was later called the Namamugi incident because it happened near a village called Namamugi. The Satsuma clan master seemed to have been asleep in his litter. But after hearing what had happened, he knew the British would probably retaliate, so he ordered the procession to hurry to their home domain to prepare for war. The British Navy decided to confront the Satsuma clan, so in 1863, they came all the way to Kyushu. Meanwhile, the Satsuma samurai were discussing how to defend themselves against the British Navy. We will start negotiations by correspondence because English very difficult. We should invite their captain to a banquet with local Satsuma delicacies and slash them down. What if they invite us to their worship for peace talks? Dangerous. Too dangerous. We will say the food we prepared will go bad and be put to waste. We can tell them Japanese people don't like wasting food. What if they refuse to come to our banquet? Then we will have to send assassins. But I don't think the British Navy will let any of us board their ship. Bring the samurai criminals in. These young samurai all committed some kind of crime out of their strong anti-foreigner sentiment. They all have death sentences anyway. Dress them as farmers and have them approach the British ships to sell watermelons. Once they are brought, they will take out their short swords and take down the captain. They will be happy to go on this suicide mission. And we won't have to execute them ourselves. 2 birds with 1 stone. We will call it Operation Watermelon Samurai! What if we open fire? We have firearms and cannons we bought from Western countries. But I am sure they are older models than the ones the British fleet will be using. They will probably shoot from outside our range. Then how are we going to damage their warships? I have an idea. We can use sea mines. But we don't have remote control in this samurai age. No worries. We will make long electric wires and detonate them from here. Englishmen, have a taste of our samurai mines. So the initial correspondence between the Satsuma stronghold and the British Navy started. And the Satsuma samurai were like, come to our banquet. But the British knew what the Satsumas were up to, so they were like, no, come to our ship. The British side demanded that the Satsumas hand over the murder of Richardson, but the Satsumas were like, he's not here. Absent. So they made no progress. So next, the Satsumas deployed their Operation Watermelon Samurai Squads. Would you like watermelon? No! Don't be a shy British boy! Captain, can we ignore them? But what if they're envoys and have a letter from the Satsumas? They look like they just desperately want to sell watermelons to me. Just let one of them on board and we'll try to ask him if he has a letter. Yes, sir. What? One person come on board. Thank you very much. Hello. Welcome to Satsuma. I said just one? What are 7, 8, 9 of you coming up? How many of you were on that small boat? So one Watermelon Samurai squad successfully boarded their target ship. But all the other squads that were targeting all the other British vessels were not permitted to come on board. Their plan was to attack all the enemy ships at once, so there was no green light. They were returned without accomplishing anything. After several days of back and forth, the British Navy concluded that the Satsumas needed to be threatened so that they would take the negotiations seriously. So finally, one morning, the British Navy set fire to the Satsuma ships docked at the port. The Satsumas understood this as an outbreak of war and started firing cannons at them. The captains of a few vessels were actually killed by this cannon fire, which was totally unexpected. But something very unexpected happened for the Satsumas too. Fire! Yes, direct hit. They will probably sail offshore to go out of our cannon range. Get ready to use the samurai mines. You are going nowhere, Englishmen, because we worked really hard making those 100-meter electric wires. Have a taste of 3 sleepless nights. Wait, they are not sailing away. They are sailing toward us! The English Navy, instead of going out of range, they came charging straight at the Satsuma stronghold. When they ran out of cannonballs, they started climbing their masts and firing rifles. Seeing this, the Satsumas were like, not running when they can, and charging into the enemy. Instead, British Navy. True samurai! So they had a man crush on the British Navy's fighting style. By the end of the day, the British retreated with 20 dead and 5 wounded. 2 died and 9 were injured on the Satsuma side, but 500 houses were burned down, so it was more like a draw. But the Satsumas understood that this was just one British fleet. They realized they were no match against them if they decided to come all out. The British side too thought the Satsumas had balls. Unlike the shogunate that folded so easily when earlier they demanded compensation for Richardson's death. So a couple of months later, the two sides had peace talks. And in it, the Satsumas agreed to buy a warship from the UK and also requested that they send some young men to study abroad in the UK. The British side welcomed the group of samurai to a study abroad program, which was realized in 1865. And finally, the Satsumas had a present for the British. They gave the seedlings of not watermelons, but mandarin oranges. And that is why in the UK, easy-to-peel mandarins are called Satsumas. A third of my bestseller book, Underdogs of Japanese History, is about the Satsuma samurai. And the story you watch today is written in it in far more detail. If you're interested in knowing the full story, please pick this book up. Paperbacks are only available on Amazon because they print them, and ebooks are available on most platforms. Please also check out my other books, which feature stories from folklore and history, all coupled with insightful cultural commentary. And I have a YouTube membership where you can get sneak peeks on what I've been working on. I'll be most grateful if you can support my work by joining the membership. Thank you, and I hope to see you in my books.